Well, this isn't exactly news I expected to be talking about this offseason, much less today. But here we are. The Buffalo Bills have traded wide receiver Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. Welcome into the Pump Fake, everybody. I'm Jared Bailey with you as always to dive into this because this is we've had a little bit of a lull with big news around the NFL regarding trades, free agent signings, things of that nature. And then this morning, well, really last night, stuff began swirling once again with the Buffalo Bills, Stefon Diggs. There was a tweet in which someone had pointed out, did, Stefon Diggs helped, make Josh Allen great. Let me actually pull up the exact wording of it because I don't want to get it wrong. The Peaky Pirate, and that's a great Twitter handle, said, does Josh benefit from having a top tier receiver? Yes. Is he essential to his success? No. To which Stefon Diggs replied, you sure? That took place last night. And then this morning, less than an hour ago, the Bills traded him to the Houston Texans. And then the compensation for the trade, let me go to Adam Schefter, who tweeted out the official compensation. So the Bills get, where'd it go? Goodness gracious. Okay, so the compensation update. The Buffalo Bills receive a 2025 second-round pick, not a 2024. And the Texans receive Diggs, plus the Bills sent a 6th-round pick this year and a 5th-round pick next year. So the Bills, like, you look at that compensation, that very much looked like the Bills just wanted to get rid of Diggs. Like, they were just tired of it because they gave him and 2 draft picks to Houston for a 2nd-round pick, not in this year's draft, in next year's draft. And I understand the trade market for receivers this year hasn't been great. You look at the Jerry Jeudy trade, he went for 2 day 2 picks or 2 day 3 picks. Deontay Johnson went for a day 3 pick and a player. So I understand that the trade market for receivers hasn't been great, but the fact that they gave Diggs to Houston along with 2 day 3 draft picks, I understand they're day 3 picks, but the fact that they just threw those in there only to get a draft pick in next year's draft in return, that to me just says they were tired of Stefon Diggs. They were tired of Stefon Diggs. And I think a lot of this stems from over a year ago after the playoff loss to Cincinnati, or during the playoff loss to Cincinnati, really, where, we could all see Stefon Diggs yelling something at Josh Allen for a while. Like, this wasn't just, a quick shout and walk away. Like, he was getting some stuff off his chest. And Josh Allen was sitting on the bench, just kind of taking it. And then last offseason, Diggs missed, was it the first or second day of the mandatory mini camp? You remember Sean McDermott was sitting on the podium saying, oh, I'm very concerned. Everybody's like, all right, what the hell's happening with Stefon Diggs? Is he okay? Obviously, he ended up okay. He showed it for the last day of mini camp. Everything seemed fine. The regular season happens. He starts off incredibly hot. I think he had 5 100-yard games in the first 6 weeks. And then he just fell off a cliff. After the first 6 weeks, he didn't have a 100-yard game the rest of the year. And if you look at his game logs, man, like it wasn't just a small sample size. Like, this was Stefon Diggs just starting off the season incredibly hot, looked like he could have been on pace for a career year. And look, the numbers, again, say he had a phenomenal year with 107 catches, over 1,100 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. But again, you look at the first 6 weeks compared to the rest of the season, it's night and day. So against the Jets, 10 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Against the Raiders, 7 catches, 66 yards. Against the Commanders, 8 catches, 111 yards. Against the Dolphins, 6 catches, 120 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Against the Jaguars, 8 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. And against the Giants, 10 catches and 100 yards. Doesn't have a 100-yard game the rest of the way. Now, against Tampa, he had 9 for 70. That's fine. But after the Cincinnati game, he only had 2 games where he had more than 5 catches. Because against Denver, 3 for 34. Against the Jets, 4 for 27. Against the Eagles, 6 for 74. Respectable. Against the Chiefs, 4 for 24. Against the Cowboys, which that comes with a little bit of an asterisk because they ran for almost 300 yards against Dallas, but 4 catches for 48. Against the Chargers, 5 for 29. Against the Patriots, 4 for 26. And then he had a nice game against the Dolphins to close out the year, 7 for 87. And then in the playoff game against Pittsburgh, 7 for 52. And now his final game as a Bill against Kansas City in the playoffs, 3 catches, 21 yards, and that infamous drop, which is going to be the final shot of him as a Bill, really. That was on his final drive as a Bill. And Josh Allen put a ball perfectly 60-plus yards downfield right in his hands in coverage, and Diggs dropped it. But yet he still feels the need to imply that he made Josh Allen. And look, did Stefon Diggs very much help the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen? Absolutely. So this isn't going to be me trying to, crap on Stefon Diggs and say that he didn't do anything for the Bills. That would be stupid. Because once they got Stefon Diggs, they immediately got to the AFC Championship game. But they were in the playoffs the year before with a bad cast of characters around Josh Allen. So to say that Josh Allen wouldn't be elite without him, again, Josh Allen led the NFL in total touchdowns last year and total yards, while Diggs didn't have a 100-yard game after week 6. Like, Josh Allen's the second best quarterback in football. But now the Buffalo Bills have a gaping hole at receiver. They already had a big hole at receiver. And the question was, okay, who are they going to get to put opposite of Stefon Diggs because they don't have anybody on the perimeter? Now they don't have legitimately no perimeter receivers, legitimate starting caliber perimeter receivers. It ain't going to be Mac Hollins. It ain't going to be Curtis Samuel, who they put out there predominantly. It's not going to be Khalil Shakir. They don't have anybody right now. And now you start to wonder, okay, are they going to move up and get a guy? Because right now they need to. You can't sit there at 28, man. You gotta move up. Unless you're banking on somebody falling. Unless you were really thinking that Brian Thomas is going to fall to 28. I don't think he's going to fall to 28. Move up, man. Call Atlanta. Call Atlanta at 8 and say, look, man, y'all got a quarterback. Most of your needs fall, on the defensive side of the football right now. It's not that strong of an edge class. You could get somebody at 28 that you wouldn't want to reach for at 8. How about doing a trade? We'll give you 28. We'll give you next year's 1. And we'll give you, a 3rd-round pick as well in this year's draft. So we'll give you 2 1s and a 3. Move back to 28. We move up to 8. And we'll take Roma Duns. How about it? I think they have to do something like that. Or I don't think the Chargers would be willing to move down that far. But if they are, then, hey, man, you guys need a lot of pieces because the Chargers are in a similar situation. That's why I don't think that they would be really willing to make that move, especially if Malik Neighbors and or Marvin Harrison is there. I just don't think that they should move off that. Or Arizona. Hey, Arizona. You already got a ton of draft capital. You want a little bit more? Because we'll give you our 1 this year. We'll give you our 1 next year. And we'll give you a draft pick in this year's draft if you move from 4 to 28. Now, I think that's definitely as high as they could go. But I think Atlanta at 8 is the prime spot right now. Because the Chargers shouldn't move out of 5. Because they'll have a chance at Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors. And right now they don't have any starting caliber receivers on their roster either. So looking at the rest of the draft order here, just trying to pinpoint where they could go. it's not going to be the Commanders at 2, obviously, but maybe Tennessee at 7. Like, hey, this is a deep tackle class. That's probably where you guys are going to go. You just signed Calvin Ridley. You don't need a receiver. How about moving back to 28? So, I mean, 7 and 8 are in play for the Bills because, again, Tennessee doesn't need a receiver right now or doesn't need to take one in the first round. They have Calvin Ridley. They have DeAndre Hopkins. They don't need to take another receiver in the first round. Atlanta doesn't need to take another receiver in the first round. But you know who's probably going to take a receiver in the first round? The Bears, who pick at 9. And so you kind of got to get in front of that 8 ball, man. So I think for the Bills, the best thing that they can do is put a package together, call Tennessee and Atlanta, and say, hey, we need to move up because we have no receivers. Our starting perimeter receiver right now is Mac Hollins. We cannot do that. So we're going to offer you a 1 this year. We'll offer you the 28th overall pick. We'll offer you our 1 next year, and we'll give you a 3rd. And hell, we'll give you one of our 5th round picks that we still have because we had 3. We sent one away. So they still have 2 5th round picks that they could deal. And again, many people, draft experts who know more about these prospects than me, but I think it was Albert Breer who said, yeah, after the 4th round of this draft, man, the talent just falls off. So if you're Buffalo, why the hell are you hoarding day 3 picks? Trade all of them. Like, here, take 5 through 7, all of our picks. Just take them. We need to move up and get a receiver. And by the way, they absolutely need to figure something else out as well now, because even if they do move up and get, Rome Odunze or somehow a Malik Neighbors, that's cool. They can't be done. You need somebody else. Because again, ahead of the Diggs trade, all we were talking about was, okay, they need a perimeter receiver opposite of Diggs. Diggs isn't there now. They need 2 perimeter receivers. They need somebody who can be that natural separator, that X receiver, and they need somebody who can be kind of that Gabe Davis role, but be better at it than Gabe Davis has been. So I could see them either double dipping at receiver, which is a dangerous game rolling into the season with, your 2 outside receivers, both as rookies. But we've seen plenty of rookies have success over the past few years with, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. So we're seeing that more and more that talented receiver is translating immediately to the NFL. So if the Bills wanted to, if they move up to take a Brian Thomas, they can come back, double dip a receiver and take somebody like a Jerome Baker who could be that predominant deep threat. Because, again, they need to do something. You look at the remaining receivers that are available in free agency, there ain't much. Tyler Boyd's still out there, but he's predominantly been a slot guy. And you already have 2 of those, plus Dalton Kincaid. So slot receiver is not a need for the Bills. It's, can we get somebody on the outside? And you know what? Hell, maybe they pull off a trade. They should start calling. Call the 49ers about Brandon Ayuk. Call the Commanders about Terry McLaurin. Start calling. Because I would feel very uneasy going into the season with both of my X and Y receivers as rookies. Now again, Khalil Shakir, good slot receiver. Curtis Samuel, fun slot gadget guy. You need more than that, man. You need more than that. And, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago saying the Bills need to get aggressive and make a splash. Like, they couldn't have done 2 day 3 picks for Jerry Jeudy. Because I tell you what, I would feel much more confident rolling into the season if they had Jerry Jeudy and still made a move up to get a Rome Odunze, or even if they stay put and got a Troy Franklin. Someone of that caliber, an A.D. Mitchell, a Xavier Worthy, a Roman Wilson, somebody. But they need a vet. And again, they need to start picking up the phone and calling. And you know what? Call the Bengals. Call the Bengals about T. Higgins. Like, look, man, he's not coming back. next year. You guys aren't paying him. We will. So what do you want? And again, that's a situation where we've seen the wide receiver trade market this year. We just saw it with the Diggs trade. It's not great. So you can, if you do pull off the trade, you won't have to give up a king's ransom to do it. Now, T. Higgins is better than Deontay Johnson and Jerry Jeudy and Stefon Diggs right now. But from what we've seen, it's not going to take a first-round pick to get him. It's not going to take a second-round pick to get him. You can probably get him for a third as the main component. A third. And again, they have a bunch of day 3 picks to throw in. You can throw in some of the ones next year. But on the flip side of that, for the Bengals, it's like, okay, well, we're going to try to go all in this year. And this is kind of like our last hurrah with T. Higgins, but we're going to try to win it all. And we need him to do it. So I think that the Bengals are pretty hesitant on moving on from him for that reason. But at least see what you can do. Call the Seahawks about DK Metcalf. Call the Eagles. There's been murmurs about A.J. Brown. Start picking up the phone. Start calling people. Because you need to do something. Got to do something. Now, on the flip side, the Houston Texans were already fun. They just got a lot more fun. Like CJ Stroud now with Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell, Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce in the backfield. That is a fun offense. I'll say it right now. Here, I'll give you my bold prediction. CJ Stroud, 2024 NFL MVP. Had he not got hurt last year, I think he should have been the 2023 MVP. Hell, I still think, even regardless of missing 2 games, he should have been MVP last year. But now you give him Stefon Diggs to go along with Collins and Dell. He's only going to keep getting better. Like, he's not knocking on the door. He's already opened the door. He's very much one of those guys, one of the 5 to 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And he just got another weapon. Absolutely on board with CJ Stroud, MVP of 2024. So the Houston Texans are going to be fun. And when you look around that division, like if I'm Jacksonville, I'm like, really? We already didn't have any corners. Now we got to worry about covering 3 of them. Great. If I'm Indianapolis, I'm like, oh, really? Like, they just won the division last year. We're getting Anthony Richardson back. That's great, but we still need a little bit of help. Houston, man, it looks like they are going to have, I think that Jacksonville and Indy are still going to be good and in the fight, but Houston right now, man, are head and shoulders better than both of them. So I'm really excited to see what comes of that for the Texans. Very much. But for the Bills, you got to start calling people. Call the Commanders about Terry McLaurin. Call the 49ers about Brandon Ayuk. And look, if you got to overpay, right now you don't really have many options. And again, I don't think that they will have to. But, if I'm John Lynch and the 49ers pick up the phone and it's Brandon Beane and he makes a little bit of a low ball offer, he's like, look, man, you don't have any receivers. So either you're going to have to give me a little bit more or, thanks, but no thanks. So that could be a situation where the Bills have now put themselves into a little bit of a corner because teams around the NFL know, okay, they're going to start Mac Hollins. No, give me more or you're not getting him. So for a team like San Francisco, who might not have been on board with trading Brandon Ayuk because of the trade market, they can lift their own market because Buffalo really needs the help. And if you're the Bills as well, like this is the part where I come back to the draft and it being like draft picks being very much overvalued. Because if you're the Bills and the 49ers say, look, give us a 2nd round pick and, whatever else, give us a 2nd round pick and 2 more draft picks for Brandon Ayuk. Why would you say no to that? Who are you getting right now in the 2nd round and the 5th round that's going to be better than Brandon Ayuk? Who are you getting in the 1st round right now that's going to be better than Brandon Ayuk? Nobody. I understand that you're going to have to pay him. Yeah, no kidding, you're going to have to pay him. He's a great player. Great players make great player money. And if you want to finally get over that hump, You're going to have to surround Josh Allen with other great players. Okay. You can't just BS your way with, again, it's no disrespect to, guys like Khalil Shakir. He's a fine player. He ain't beating Kansas City. It's no disrespect to guys in the past like Gabe Davis, who put on a great performance against the Chiefs in the infamous 13 seconds game. But after that, very much didn't live up to the hype. And then Stefon Diggs this year, who started off incredibly hot and then fell off. You can't just try to surround a great player with mediocrity and expect him to lift everybody. Because while he can, everybody has a ceiling on how far they can be lifted. So even if the 49ers say, give us 28 for Brandon Ayuk, you take that. You say, okay, we'll do that. And guess what? Even if it's 28 and a 5th round pick and a 4th next year, okay, you do that. Because who are you taking in the 4th round at that position who's going to be better than Brandon Ayuk? Nobody. You're not taking anybody in the 5th round this year that's going to be better than Brandon Ayuk. So you take your medicine. You trade what you got to trade to get somebody great. And then you roll into 2024 with Brandon Ayuk as your 1 and a draft pick as your 2, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins. That's a fine receiving core. Plus you got Kincaid, but you got to make a move. And whether it be for Brandon Ayuk or a Terry McLaurin, you got to do something. And I think that the Commanders would be a little bit more willing to part with McLaurin because they're not winning a Super Bowl. They're not in contention. And yeah, it makes sense for them to keep McLaurin to try to help develop whomever their pick at quarterback is going to be. But it's not as if they don't have, the ability to bring in somebody else via the draft themselves. They still have Jahan Dotson there. But I understand the logic of saying, the Commanders should hold on to McLaurin to help develop, Drake May or whoever it may be. But regardless, there is a market. And if the Bills were to call the Commanders right now and say, look, we'll give you pick number 28 for Terry McLaurin, I don't think the Commanders would say no. I don't think they should say no. Because again, you're not winning anything with Terry McLaurin. You haven't won anything with Terry McLaurin. Why would you hold on to him? What is keeping Terry McLaurin going to do? You take the 28th pick, you try to build for the future, which, by the way, Josh Harris and the new ownership group have shown that they are very much looking forward. This is a long-term plan. So if I'm Brandon Beane, I'm calling the Commanders and saying, what do you want for Terry McLaurin? Let's figure out a deal. I'm calling the 49ers and I'm saying, we want to try to get Brandon Ayuk. Let's try to get a deal and go from there. Hell, you could call the Buccaneers. Hey, what do you want for Chris Godwin? Call the Seahawks. Hey, what will it take to get DK Metcalf? But they got to pick up the phone. They have to pick up the phone. They cannot remain stagnant here. And again, they could, trade up in the draft, take a guy early and also take another one late. But going into the season with the X receiver and the Y receiver as rookies, I don't feel confident in that if I'm Josh Allen. I don't feel confident in that if I'm the Bills, if I'm a Bills fan. That's not to say that whoever they take at both those spots can't be good or won't be good, especially, if they trade up to 7 or 8 and take, Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, whomever they decide to take. But, if you can get an established star to put around Josh Allen like they did in 2020, you should do it. Because Rome Odunze is good, but I don't know if he's going to be the missing piece to get you over Kansas City. Brandon Ayuk might be. Terry McLaurin might be. So they got to get aggressive. They got to pick up the phone. And we'll see if they do. But yeah, Buffalo Bills trading Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. And what's this do overall for the Bills? Obviously, we got to wait and see. We still have a long offseason ahead of us. Still have more than 3 months until training camp. But as of right now, you look around the AFC East, New England is going to be one of the worst teams in football. The Dolphins have the talent at the skill positions, but we've seen that Tua definitely has a ceiling, and it's not exactly a very high one. And the Jets, who knows? Defensively, they look very fun on paper, but it depends on how good Rodgers is going to be. The Bills have won the AFC East every year since 2020. And we'll see if that changes. But as long as they have number 17, I'm not concerned about them missing the playoffs or something like that. This is not going to be a thought that crosses my mind. If you have Josh Allen, I'm putting you in as a playoff team. It's just what it is. So, but at this point, it's not just about making the playoffs if you're the Bills. Maybe in 2018 it was, and that was great. But you're very far removed from being the lovable underdog who's just happy to be getting a seat at the table. No, it's about Super Bowls. It's about winning a Super Bowl. You've made it to an AFC Championship game. You've had plenty of playoff wins from 2018 or from 2020 till now. But you got to get over that hump because just being there isn't going to cut it anymore. And hell, it hasn't cut it. I mean, the past few years, we've seen the frustrations from Bills fans where it's just like, oh my goodness, we keep getting close, but we just can't get over that Kansas City-sized hump. And again, I don't think that rolling with two rookie receivers as your predominant outside targets is the way to go. So I think, after the Bills have made this trade, they need to now import somebody from a trade rather than export. So call the 49ers about Brandon Ayuk. Call the Commanders about Terry McLaurin. Call the Buccaneers about Chris Godwin. Call the Seahawks about DK Metcalf. Pick up the phone and try to get somebody who can be that number one. And then you draft somebody to be the number two. And then you're sitting pretty well. Because I gotta tell you, man, you get Brandon Ayuk, that's an immediate upgrade over Stefon Diggs, what he was last year. You get Terry McLaurin, I think that's an upgrade over what Stefon Diggs was last year. So by no means is, we still have a long offseason. Buffalo, I would assume, is going to make some sort of move in response to the trade that they just made, but we'll see. Appreciate y'all listening and watching. Busy morning, a chaotic morning in terms of everything going on in Buffalo. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. If you're listening to wherever you get your podcast, appreciate you for making me a part of your day after a crazy morning from One Bills Drive up in Buffalo, New York, after the Bills trade Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. Crazy off season keeps getting crazier. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, however you're doing it. See you later on the Pump Fake.